The Georgia runoff election is very much underway, and a lot of people are going out to vote. Record numbers of people are voting right now, which is very exciting because usually more people casting their ballot, making their voice heard means the Democratic Party does better. Just historically, that's what we've seen. And in this situation, we're also seeing, and the point I want to make about this, incredibly long lines. Now, what's the point that needs to be made? Well, the Republican Party, as we know, has put legislation and put laws in place, specifically in Georgia, a lot of talk has been about, to restrict people from being able to vote as easily, okay? Doing things so that it's a little bit more difficult, specifically for Democratic voters, to make it to the polls, to stand in line that long, for it to be comfortable and convenient. And the whole time the Democratic Party criticized this and says, this is horrible, we should try to make it as easy as possible to vote without, decreasing the security. They've said, oh, please, you're complaining. If you really need to exercise your right to vote, then you should be willing to wait in a line if that's what it takes. But then in Arizona, Kari Lake was screaming, and Steve Bannon screaming at some examples of long lines and not the perfect efficiency, and saying this is an example of the election being stolen. So I know what you're thinking. Wait, Luke, then where do you stand? Are you taking two different stands? It's okay in Arizona, it's bad in Georgia? No, it's bad in both. But just because, let's say, Herschel Walker won in Georgia, I wouldn't say the election was stolen from him and he shouldn't be senator. I would say we need to get into power in Georgia and make sure the laws aren't slanted in a way that make it harder to vote. But what they're saying in Arizona is we should fight to prevent the certification of this gubernatorial race because of some inefficiencies that occurred. Which one do you want, guys? You get to choose one. And this is why we really shouldn't listen to their screams, because if they actually wanted to fight to make our voting processes more efficient, they would have been doing that a whole long time ago, because we've been asking them to for so long. But here's this being discussed a little bit. By 5 p.m. on Wednesday, state election officials reported that more than 1 million ballots have already been cast in the high-stakes Senate runoff election. This is from Atlanta News First. Quote, we've gone over the 1 million mark, which is a great thing with 2 more days of early voting plus election day to go, said the chief operating officer of the Secretary of State's office. Sterling has felt heat on social media over long lines at many polling places across metro Atlanta. Wait times surpass 150 minutes, it says. And then in another report, a local station or one of these TV stations talked to an individual who waited in line for 2 to 3 hours, he said. As you can see here, Wilson's his last name. It probably took me roughly 2 to 3 hours, but he said he was determined 2 or 3 hours he was going to vote, which is absolutely the mindset you should have, but you shouldn't be forced to have to wait that long, especially when, if it just so happens that way, because so many people go out to vote and we weren't expecting it, it is what it is. But if this has obviously been an overt attempt by the Republican Party in Georgia to make it a little bit harder to vote, a lot harder to vote, then that's when it starts getting really, really angering to watch, because now people are having to take off time from work, or if they have kids, managing to wait for 2-3 hours in your day just to vote. But again, they'll complain about that in Arizona, but they won't in Georgia. And that's what needs to be called out when these discussions come up. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before any of the clips are uploaded to YouTube, plus get access to an extra full show every Saturday that only members can see, you can do so by going to patreon.com/Luke Beasley. That's patreon.com/Luke Beasley, and there is a link in the description.